Hey Roadies, this is Adriana from Roadie Free Radio. In this episode, Larry speaks to front of house engineer Chris Wilson. In this short clip, Chris talks about growing up in Texas and how his father's TV VCR repair shop sparked his interest in electronics and sound, as he would use leftover scraps from the dead room to create his own inventions. On the other side, his mother, a pianist, would also spark his love for music as she introduced him to his instrument, the bass. If you want to hear more about Chris, make sure to listen to episode number 126 from March 11th, 2019. Thank you for listening, and thank you for subbing. Here are Larry and Chris.
All right, so let's go back a bit, man. Growing up in Texas, your dad was a TV VCR repairman. He owned his own shop or what?
Absolutely. Dad had about 4 TV VCR repair shops across the DFW Metroplex. And growing up watching entrepreneurship is kind of, I think, feeds a lot of my entrepreneurship for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, I come from a split home, right? So I would stay with my mom and my stepdad, and I would go and see my dad and my stepmom every weekend. And every weekend, Dad would have to go and work the shops. And so growing up, a lot of the times I would hang out in what they called the dead room. It's where everything goes to die, anything that can't be fixed or people don't want to spend the money to be fixed. And so that's where my love of electronics came, to fruition. I would go in there and steal speakers and stuff out of TVs and cables and motors. And speakers, for some reason, I just gravitated toward collecting. And I remember coming home to my mom's house with just this big bag of electronics, and she was just like, why? Where is that going?
Yeah, totally. Hey, I used to take tape recorders, telephones apart, back in the day when you could take a phone apart and there was actually something in there to, make the bell go ding, ding, or whatever it was, the old rotary phones and stuff. So I get it, man. Take off the caps on the hand, the whatever that hand thing was, right? Take those caps off. There's a little speaker in there, and you'd like pretend to put a bug in, and you were like a spy or whatever it was. So I get it, dude. Or taking an old VCR apart, absolutely. Was your dad good? Was he hands-on and showing you different things?
Oh, absolutely. They showed me how to solder at a very young age, and the technicians would pass me a piece of gear, have me float the solder points, and give me like $1 for every solder point, And as a kid, I thought I was rich.
Sure.
Now I see that I was just rich with people showing me things. Yep. It was great.
Yep. And then on your mom's side, she brought you the gift of music.
Absolutely. My mom was a piano teacher since she was very young, and I grew up in Southern Baptist community where my mother sang the specials every week and played the piano every Sunday. And so I want to say I was 9 whenever she got me my first guitar. And the love of music started and hasn't left.
And you gravitated toward the bass, yeah?
Yeah. What's funny is I remember I did pretty bad in school one day, and my mom's like, until we bring that grade up, I think we're going to stop guitar lessons. And I was like, and I don't know. I think it was a couple of months later, I had a birthday, and she gave me a quarter scale bass guitar. And she's like, I think you could hang out in your bedroom and understand this one a little bit easier. And I was like, but I want to play guitar. Everyone plays guitar.
Yeah.
And I picked up the bass, and I said, it's a lot easier to understand coming from watching my mom play the piano, and just root chords and getting after it. And then I remember the first time I heard Victor Wooten play, I was like, good Lord, I didn't know that could happen. I didn't know a bass could do that.
Yeah.
And it kind of opened my eyes to other, bassists and growing up in, the rock and roll scene, watching Metallica and, those guys. And so I definitely, gravitated more towards the rock and roll guys. But
and what you went off to school for music. You studied audio science and music theory. Was the plan you were going to be in a band? This is it, or what?
I was in a band, in a high school band. We were called the Unled. It was a great time. We played a lot of shows in Deep Ellum and so forth. But I remember, I want to say it was 10th grade year. I was in a business class in high school, and the teacher walked by and she goes, "So what are you going to do with life?" And I was like, "I have no idea." She goes, "Well, what do you love to do at home?" I said, "Well, I tear apart electronics. A lot of those electronics are, microphones or speakers or, mostly music equipment." And she was like, "That sounds like an audio engineer. You should look at that." I said, "Cool." So early days of the internet, I looked that up and I said, "Man, that sounds like a really cool gig." And I mean, from that day, that's all I've thought about was being a sound man. And so out of high school, I already knew where I was going to pursue that career. I'd looked into like Full Sail and MediaTek and all of these uncredited courses. They were certificate classes at the time. And the course that I did wind up taking was out of South Dallas at Cedar Valley. And it was the only school that would allow you to double major. And whenever you completed the double major, you would get one credit in music and one in audio science. But I was taking 18 hours a semester, and I was also interning at a club in Deep Ellum at the same time, and working 2 jobs.
Wow. What
Yeah.
were the 2 jobs?
So of a morning, I would go to the Dodge dealership and I would open up the service drive and write service on the drive up until around noon. And then I would go across town and take my courses. And then I would go to Outback Steakhouse of the afternoon and wait a couple of tables to get just
Cash.
Food and gas money. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for about 2 years, I interned at the Curtain Club. And so that was starting at about 9 p.m. and about until 2 a.m. And then I would get up and do it again.
Wow. Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Hustle.
That's what you got to do whenever you know what, has to happen. You just do it.
And what at that point, what was the goal? Like I'm making this sacrifice so that I can.
I wanted to be a road engineer. I wanted to be out on a tour bus and mixing to thousands of people. And, what's funny is I went to school for this, and the band I was in didn't really appreciate it. They had an idea of, well, if that's what you want to do, we're going to move on. And I was like, hey, man, that's fine. And years later, we worked together. I'll mix them and so on and so forth. But a lot of people didn't understand that hustle mentality.
Yeah.
Of work for your future, not for tomorrow. Just think ahead.
Yeah, I think people still don't understand that, right?
Very true. Very true. Think about the YouTube stuff, right? It drags sometimes, it's kind of slow at times, but if you just pay attention to the market, how things are moving along, I think the Ford part of this plan will pay off. It's a long go, that's for sure. It's a long game, but a lot of people don't understand the long game.
Hey, what's happening, roadies? It's Larry here. Just wanted to thank you so much for listening to this short clip. I really hope you got something out of it. If you can take 2 seconds to head over to iTunes and drop us a review or a comment, we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Keep listening, keep coming back, stay healthy out there, and remember, no roadies, no rock and roll.